Before satellites, before compasses, before GPS, humans tried to map the entire world using fear, myths, and imagination. And what they believed was far more terrifying than reality. From the moment early humans first looked beyond the horizon, the urge to understand and define the unknown became inseparable from survival itself. To know where rivers flowed, where mountains rose, and where dangers lurked was not merely curiosity, it was necessity. Mapping, in its earliest form, was not about precision or scale, but about meaning. A path scratched into dirt, a story tied to a landmark, or a symbol carved into stone all served the same purpose: to make the vast and frightening world feel knowable. Long before longitude and latitude, humans mapped with memory, myth, and imagination, turning uncertainty into something that could be named and shared. In an age when science had not yet provided explanations for storms, eclipses, or the shape of the Earth itself, the world was interpreted through stories. Oceans did not simply extend beyond sight, they ended at the edges of existence or plunged into endless voids. Distant lands were not measured in miles, but in legends, realms of giants, immortal beings, or cursed peoples. Early societies filled blank spaces not with data, but with meaning. The unknown demanded explanation, and where observation failed, belief stepped in. Maps became reflections of how people felt about the world, as much as what they knew about it. This blending of fact and fantasy was not ignorance, it was a rational response to limited information. Without reliable navigation tools, travel was dangerous and unpredictable. A sailor disappearing beyond the horizon might never return, reinforcing the idea that the sea itself was alive and hostile. Mountains that no one had crossed became the homes of gods or demons. Forests swallowed travelers whole, earning reputations as cursed or enchanted. In this context, myths were not entertainment, they were frameworks for understanding risk. To place a monster on a map was to warn future travelers, danger lies here. Fear played a powerful role in shaping early maps. Cartographers often illustrated the unknown with terrifying creatures: serpents coiled in oceans, dragons guarding mountain passes, and monstrous races inhabiting distant continents. These images were not random decorations. They expressed collective anxieties about what lay beyond the familiar world. At the same time, they offered comfort. By giving fear a form, it became manageable. A sea monster could be avoided. A cursed land could be named. The map transformed chaos into order, even if that order was imagined. Faith also guided the pen of early mapmakers. Many medieval maps placed spiritual truth above geographical accuracy. Sacred sites were enlarged and centered, while distant regions shrank or warped. Jerusalem, Mecca, or other holy places often sat at the heart of the world, not because of their physical location, but because of their spiritual significance. These maps were not meant to guide travelers, they were meant to guide belief. Geography became a visual theology, reinforcing the idea that the world was designed with divine purpose. Fantasy, fear, and faith together turned maps into mirrors of the human mind. They reveal how people understood their place in the universe long before satellites and surveys replaced speculation. Every blank space was an invitation to imagine, every edge a reminder of human limitation. To map the unknown was to confront it, to reduce the terror of endless possibility into lines, symbols, and stories. In doing so, early humans were not merely charting land and sea, they were mapping their hopes, fears, and need for meaning in a world that was still more myth than science. From the earliest days of human existence, people have sought to make sense of the world around them, to place themselves within it, and to describe the vastness that stretched beyond their immediate experience. Long before the invention of compasses, sextants, or any form of scientific surveying, humans relied on imagination, observation, and storytelling to conceptualize the Earth. Cave paintings, etched symbols, and oral traditions served as the first maps, conveying both practical knowledge and cultural meaning. The earliest humans did not merely record what they saw, they interpreted their surroundings through the lens of survival, spirituality, and myth. A winding river, a dense forest, or a jagged mountain range became landmarks embedded with stories of origin, danger, or reverence. Symbolic geography was a natural outgrowth of this early cognition. Locations were not only physically mapped, but imbued with spiritual and narrative significance, creating mental landscapes as important as the physical terrain itself. Oral maps played a crucial role in early societies. Knowledge of safe routes, hunting grounds, seasonal patterns, and sources of water was passed down through stories, songs, and rituals. In the absence of written records, these narratives acted as living maps, encoding topography, distances, and hazards in a form accessible to the community. Sacred landscapes emerged as particularly powerful navigational tools. Mountains, rivers, and caves were often thought to house spirits or gods, making journeys across the land a blend of practical navigation and spiritual pilgrimage. Directions were frequently described in relation to these sacred sites, blending the physical with the mythological. A path might lead not only to a water source, but also to a shrine, signaling that early human understanding of geography was inseparable from belief and imagination. As civilizations arose, so too did more formalized conceptions of the Earth. The people of Mesopotamia, among the earliest to record their worldview in writing, imagined the Earth as a flat, circular expanse surrounded by water. Their cosmology was a layered universe, a flat land encircled by a cosmic ocean with a domed sky above. This conception was vividly captured in artifacts such as the Babylonian world map, which depicted Babylon at the center, with distant regions and mythic lands at the edges. The map reflected both geographical knowledge and cultural worldview, portraying known lands alongside regions of monsters or gods. Egypt, too, developed a unique approach to geography, deeply intertwined with religion and the rhythms of the Nile. The river itself was considered the lifeblood of the world, a sacred axis that connected life, death, and divine order. Temples, pyramids, and cities were aligned with celestial events and river patterns, reflecting a belief that the Nile was not just a physical feature, but the very center of existence. In these early civilizations, geography was inseparable from myth, religion, and the societal need to locate human life within a structured universe. Among these ancient worldviews, the flat Earth concept dominated early human thought. Observers, seeing a horizon that appeared straight and uniform, naturally inferred that the Earth must be flat. The sky was imagined as a vast dome covering this plane, and waters beyond the horizon were seen as cosmic oceans, dangerous and mysterious. Tales warned of venturing too far, suggesting that one might fall off the edge of the world. These fears were not merely fanciful, they represented genuine attempts to conceptualize the unknown. By giving the Earth edges and limits, people created a framework for navigation, storytelling, and religious belief, transforming uncertainty into a comprehensible model. The Greek thinkers of antiquity began to challenge and expand these early ideas. Homer, in his epics, described a circular ocean surrounding the known world, a conceptual bridge between myth and observation. Later, philosophers like Pythagoras introduced the radical notion that the Earth was spherical, an idea grounded in reason rather than legend. Aristotle provided further evidence, citing observations such as the shape of Earth's shadow on the moon during an eclipse and the differing visibility of constellations at various latitudes. These insights marked a turning point in human understanding, illustrating the capacity for observation and deduction to refine imagination into scientific thought. Yet even these early scientific ideas existed alongside enduring myths, demonstrating the long tension between belief and evidence in human attempts to conceptualize the planet. As ideas about the Earth evolved, so too did humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. Geocentric cosmology, widely accepted in antiquity and throughout the medieval period, placed the Earth at the center of the universe. This view aligned with religious beliefs that humanity held a special place in creation. The heavens revolved around the Earth, the stars and planets moving in predictable orbits, while the sun, moon, and celestial bodies were interpreted as divine signals and instruments. This conception reinforced a sense of order, giving meaning and structure to both the natural world and human existence. The Earth was not simply a sphere floating in space, it was a God-chosen center, a stage for human history and spiritual destiny. In medieval Europe, the understanding of geography became even more closely entwined with faith. Maps were rarely created for practical navigation alone. They were visual expressions of religious cosmology. Jerusalem, considered the spiritual heart of the world, was often placed at the center of maps, even if geographically inaccurate. Pilgrimages and holy sites influenced cartography as much as rivers or mountains. The emphasis was not on scientific precision, but on moral and spiritual order. Knowledge of distant lands was often secondary to symbolic representation, with regions depicted according to their religious significance rather than scale or orientation. Geography became a medium for conveying spiritual truth, blending sacred symbolism with rudimentary topography. One of the most iconic examples of this symbolic approach was the TO map, a form widely used in medieval Europe. These maps divided the world into 3 continents, Asia, Europe, and Africa, separated by a T-shaped arrangement of rivers and seas, within a circular O representing the world itself. Jerusalem occupied the center, highlighting spiritual rather than geographic primacy. The design reflected biblical narratives, placing theological meaning above empirical observation. While crude by modern standards, TO maps encapsulated the medieval mindset. The world was understood not only in terms of land and water, but in terms of moral and religious order. Each line, each division conveyed cultural values as much as geography, reminding viewers that maps were as much instruments of belief as instruments of navigation. Through all these stages, from cave art to TO maps, humanity's imagination of Earth reveals a complex interplay between observation, myth, and faith. Early humans navigated by memory, symbol, and story, transforming physical landscapes into maps rich with meaning. Ancient civilizations embedded spirituality into their geography, aligning life and culture with rivers, stars, and sacred sites. The flat Earth, cosmic oceans, and monstrous borders illustrate the fears and beliefs that shaped early mental maps, while Greek and medieval innovations began to reconcile observation with imagination. Across time, maps became more than tools, they were mirrors of human thought, reflecting how societies perceived themselves, the unknown, and the cosmos itself. Even when empirical knowledge was limited, the desire to understand, organize, and represent the world persisted, laying the groundwork for the precise cartography that would emerge centuries later. In imagining the Earth, humans not only charted the physical realm, but mapped the boundaries of belief, fear, and wonder, demonstrating that even the most fantastical depictions were deeply human attempts to impose order on the vast and mysterious world. For much of human history, the ocean was less a route to distant lands than a vast, unknowable expanse of danger. To early sailors, it represented chaos incarnate, waves that could rise without warning, storms that swallowed ships whole, and currents whose direction seemed capricious and unpredictable. The sea was a domain where human control was limited and where the laws of land did not apply. Fear of the unknown drove every voyage. Stories of the ocean's perils became both cautionary tales and guides. Sailors' superstitions arose from necessity as much as imagination. Certain winds, the behavior of birds, or the appearance of foam on the water could be interpreted as omens. Mariners carried charms, recited prayers, and followed ritualistic practices to appease unseen forces, hoping to survive the unpredictable wrath of the deep. In a world where the boundaries of exploration were continually tested, the edge of the known world was both a literal and psychological frontier, and the unknown waters beyond inspired stories that would persist for centuries. On ancient maps, these stories took visual form in the shape of sea monsters. Cartographers, blending observation with imagination, adorned blank spaces with serpents, leviathans, and other monstrous beings. These depictions were not purely decorative, they served practical purposes. A dragon coiled in the waters off a distant coast functioned as a warning, "Sail here at your peril." The symbols conveyed uncertainty, danger, and the limits of navigational knowledge. Artistic imagination flourished alongside practical cartography, and sometimes the two were inseparable. The boundaries between real hazards, such as dangerous reefs, and mythical creatures were blurred, as both represented the same concept, the unknown. Maps thus became instruments not only of geography, but of human psychology, instilling caution in the minds of those who would venture into the open sea. Among the most famous sea creatures of early cartography was the Leviathan, a massive serpent-like beast often described in biblical and mythological texts. It represented the ultimate threat of the deep, embodying both natural fear and religious symbolism. Sailors spoke of krakens, enormous squid-like monsters capable of dragging entire ships beneath the waves. Tales of serpentine creatures stretching for leagues and whales so immense they were mistaken for islands circulated widely. Such reports, exaggerated through retelling, found their way onto maps as tangible embodiments of the unknown. For those who had never ventured far from shore, these illustrations were as real as the coastlines themselves, shaping perceptions of the ocean for generations. Dragons, mermaids, and hybrid beasts populated the imaginative landscapes of the deep. Half-human, half-fish mermaids symbolized the dangers of desire and the lure of the unknown, reflecting broader human fears projected onto the ocean. Cultures across the world shared strikingly similar ideas. Japanese maps depicted sea serpents. Norse sagas recounted the Jormungandr encircling the world. European charts displayed dragons and water demons. Each creature carried symbolic weight, often warning of human hubris or moral weakness. The blending of human and animal forms suggested that the sea itself was a liminal space, one where normal rules no longer applied and the line between humanity and nature blurred. Medieval bestiaries codified these creatures further, often embedding them with moral lessons. The ocean became a testing ground for virtue, with monstrous inhabitants representing sin, punishment, or divine wrath. A sailor encountering a sea serpent was not merely at risk of physical harm, he was reminded of spiritual peril. Religious interpretations reinforced the idea that venturing too far or attempting to conquer the unknown could invite both natural and divine consequences.
Monsters on maps and in stories were didactic as much as illustrative, teaching respect for the forces of the natural world while reinforcing moral frameworks within society. Here be dragons, perhaps the most famous association between fear and cartography, emerged as a succinct warning of the unknown. While it appeared only sporadically in historical records, the sentiment it conveyed was widespread. Beyond the familiar waters lay unimaginable dangers. This fear was functional. It created psychological barriers that limited reckless exploration, while simultaneously enticing the brave or curious to push boundaries. The unknown sea was a canvas upon which imagination, caution, and wonder were projected, shaping how civilizations perceived the wider world and prepared for its uncertainties. In essence, these monsters, dragons, and hybrid beasts were as much about the human mind as they were about the ocean itself, transforming natural hazards into symbols that communicated fear, respect, and the limits of human knowledge. Across centuries, the combination of superstition, myth, and observation gave rise to a rich visual and narrative culture surrounding the oceans. Maps became repositories of stories, capturing not only the contours of coastlines and islands, but the collective anxieties of seafarers. The monsters of the deep were tools of navigation as well as imagination, warning, entertaining, and instructing in equal measure. They remind us that the human urge to understand the unknown has always been intertwined with the need to tell stories, to make sense of danger, and to assert some measure of control over a world that is, by its nature, unpredictable and vast. The ocean, in this sense, was never just water. It was the ultimate frontier, a mirror of human fear and wonder, filled with creatures born of both observation and imagination, charted on maps to guide, caution, and inspire. Even today, the legacy of these fears persists. Tales of monstrous sea creatures continue to capture popular imagination, from folklore to films, reflecting an enduring fascination with the unknown. Early maps, with their serpents, leviathans, and dragons, serve as historical artifacts of human psychology, illustrating how societies once navigated uncertainty, not only with skill, but with imagination, fear, and belief. The ocean, in this sense, was never just water. It was the ultimate frontier, a mirror of human fear and wonder, filled with creatures born of both observation and imagination, charted on maps to guide, caution, and inspire. For centuries, maps were more than tools for navigation. They were reflections of human curiosity, imagination, and hope. In the vast unknown, cartographers often filled empty spaces with lands that might exist, shaping perceptions as much as geography. These phantom lands arose from a mixture of rumor, error, and speculation. Sailors returning from distant voyages brought stories of islands shrouded in mist, of continents glimpsed from afar, or of lands inhabited by strange peoples. Mapmakers, lacking verification, incorporated these tales into their charts, sometimes embellishing details to fill the blank spaces that begged for meaning. Mistakes were copied from one map to the next, perpetuating myths across centuries. What began as a rumor might, through repetition and visual authority, take on the weight of reality, leaving a trail of countries and islands that never existed. These lost lands illustrate humanity's need to imagine, to believe in places beyond immediate experience, and to structure the unknown in ways that made sense culturally, spiritually, and emotionally. Among these legendary realms, Atlantis stands as perhaps the most enduring. First described by Plato in his dialogues, Atlantis was depicted as a highly advanced civilization, rich in resources and morally complex, that eventually sank beneath the waves.
Though many scholars consider it allegorical, early mapmakers often treated the story as geographical possibility. Over the centuries, charts showed islands or continents labeled as Atlantis, inspiring explorers to search the Atlantic and beyond for evidence. The allure of Atlantis endured because it represented the ultimate lost world, a place where human achievement met natural catastrophe, a civilization erased from memory yet immortalized in imagination. Its presence on maps and in literature fueled countless expeditions, reflecting the human desire to find meaning, treasure, or redemption in lands beyond the familiar. Other supposed continents captured imaginations in similar ways. Lemuria and Mu, for instance, emerged from attempts to explain geological and biological mysteries before modern science provided answers. Early scientists and writers proposed the existence of lost supercontinents to account for the distribution of plants, animals, and mineral resources across the globe. Though these ideas were later debunked, the concept of a hidden landmass beneath the oceans appealed to the human longing for connection, origin stories, and the possibility of hidden knowledge. Pseudo-scientific theories mingled with folklore, producing maps that depicted vast continents now known to never to have existed. These imagined lands fulfilled a psychological need, the belief that even in the vastness of the unexplored, humans could locate order, civilization, or treasure. The concept of terra incognita, unknown land, was another way cartographers addressed the mysteries at the edges of the known world. Blank spaces on maps were not simply omitted, they were opportunities for imagination. Some were labeled, "Here be dragons," while others received fanciful names or artistic embellishments. These unknown lands symbolized both fear and fascination, acting as warnings to the unwary traveler while also inviting exploration. The uncharted portions of the world demanded storytelling, blending real observations with myth to create a geography that was as cultural as it was physical. Maps became narratives of uncertainty, expressing the tension between human curiosity and the limits of knowledge. Ultimately, the stories of Atlantis, Lemuria, Terra Australis, and phantom islands like High Brazil or Antilia remind us that early maps were not merely practical instruments, they were mirrors of the human mind. They reveal a world in which imagination filled the gaps left by knowledge, where legend coexisted with observation, and where the unseen was given form in order to understand it. For most of human history, maps were never neutral objects. They were powerful instruments shaped by belief, authority, and control, designed not only to represent the world, but to explain who mattered within it. Religion and power often determined what appeared on a map, what was omitted, and how space itself was understood. In societies where faith shaped every aspect of life, geography became an extension of theology. Maps were used to visualize divine order, reinforcing the idea that the world was created with purpose and hierarchy. Heaven and hell were not abstract concepts, but real places that could be illustrated, positioned, and even measured in relation to Earth. Medieval Christian maps frequently placed heaven above the world and hell at its edges or beneath it, transforming geography into a moral landscape. These depictions reminded viewers that the physical world was only one layer of a greater spiritual reality, and that every journey carried religious significance. Sacred locations consistently took precedence over real geography. Cities such as Jerusalem, Mecca, Rome, or Varanasi were enlarged, centered, or exaggerated regardless of their actual size or location. Their importance was not measured in miles, but in meaning. A river that appeared insignificant in reality might be drawn prominently because it held religious symbolism, while vast regions might be compressed or distorted if they lacked spiritual relevance. Maps became tools for teaching faith, guiding pilgrims, and reinforcing religious worldviews. In these God-centered designs, accuracy was secondary to message. The world was arranged not according to physical laws, but according to divine intention, with humanity positioned at the center of creation and God as the ultimate authority over space and direction. As civilizations expanded, political power became just as influential as religion in shaping maps. Empires used cartography to assert dominance, placing themselves at the center of the world and portraying their territories as vast, orderly, and secure. Borders were drawn boldly to emphasize control, while rival lands were minimized, distorted, or left vague. Maps became visual propaganda, reinforcing the legitimacy of rulers and the inevitability of empire. A well-drawn map could suggest ownership even before conquest occurred. By placing flags, names, or imperial symbols on distant lands, rulers claimed territory through ink long before armies arrived. Cartography thus became an extension of warfare, diplomacy, and statecraft. Maps also played a crucial role in shaping how subjects understood their place within an empire. Roads, cities, and resources were carefully highlighted to demonstrate order and prosperity under imperial rule. Dangerous regions were depicted as wild or empty, justifying expansion or conquest. In this way, maps were not merely records of power, but instruments that helped create and maintain it. They shaped perception, turning political ambition into apparent geographic fact. The act of mapping was itself an assertion of authority, implying knowledge, control, and destiny. Despite their importance, map-making knowledge was rarely shared freely. For much of history, the ability to create accurate maps was restricted to elites. Priests, scholars, royal cartographers, and navigators sworn to secrecy. Navigational routes, especially sea routes, were guarded as state secrets. To reveal them could mean economic ruin or military vulnerability. In some cases, punishment for sharing navigational knowledge was severe, including imprisonment or death. This control ensured that power remained concentrated among those who already possessed it. Knowledge of the world became a currency, traded carefully and protected fiercely. The restriction of cartographic knowledge reinforced social hierarchies. Ordinary people encountered maps primarily as religious illustrations or symbols of authority, not as practical tools for independent exploration. By controlling who could map and what could be mapped, religious institutions and states controlled how people understood the world itself. Maps shaped imagination, belief, and ambition, but access to their creation remained tightly regulated. Even errors or myths persisted when they served political or religious interests, illustrating that truth was often less important than utility. In this context, maps were instruments of discipline as much as discovery. They defined boundaries not only between lands, but between those who could know and those who could not. By shaping perception, reinforcing belief, and restricting knowledge, maps helped maintain existing power structures. They taught people where they belonged in both the physical and spiritual world, reinforcing obedience to divine and earthly authorities alike. Ultimately, the history of cartography reveals that maps were never just about geography. They were expressions of faith, tools of empire, and mechanisms of control. By placing gods, kings, and capitals at the center of the world, maps shaped how societies understood reality itself. They remind us that before maps became scientific instruments, they were deeply human creations, crafted to guide belief, assert power, and define who had the right to know the world and who did not. By the late medieval period, the world stood on the brink of a profound transformation. For centuries, geography had been shaped by myth, faith, and inherited authority, but the age of discovery began to challenge these foundations. As explorers traveled farther than ever before, first-hand experience slowly replaced legend. Accounts like those of Marco Polo expanded European understanding of Asia, describing real cities, trade networks, and cultures that contradicted long-held assumptions. Though some of his stories were exaggerated, they revealed that the world was far larger and more complex than medieval maps suggested. At the same time, Arab cartographers preserved and expanded ancient Greek and Roman knowledge that Europe had largely forgotten. Through careful observation and mathematical precision, Islamic scholars produced remarkably accurate maps, refining ideas of latitude and scale. When these works were translated into Latin, lost knowledge returned to Europe, igniting a renewed interest in empirical geography and setting the stage for dramatic change. New navigation technologies accelerated this shift from myth to measurement. The magnetic compass allowed sailors to navigate open waters without relying on stars or coastlines, fundamentally altering exploration. Instruments such as the astrolabe and quadrant enabled mariners to calculate latitude with increasing accuracy, making long-distance sea travel far safer. Map accuracy improved as coastlines were recorded through repeated voyages rather than inherited tradition. Yet challenges remained. Longitude, unlike latitude, was nearly impossible to measure accurately at sea, leading to distorted maps and misplaced landmasses. Despite these limitations, technology steadily narrowed the gap between imagination and reality. The world was no longer guessed, it was measured, charted, and tested against experience. As knowledge expanded, the terrifying creatures that once haunted the oceans began to vanish from maps. Sea monsters, once essential warnings in unknown waters, slowly gave way to blank spaces and detailed coastlines. Science did not instantly erase myth, but it diminished its authority. When sailors repeatedly crossed oceans without encountering leviathans or krakens, the need for monstrous explanations faded. The imaginary ocean, once filled with serpents and dragons, became a space of commerce, exploration, and empire. Blank spaces on maps shrank as expeditions filled in coastlines, islands, and continents with verifiable detail. The unknown was no longer terrifying, it was a challenge to be conquered. This transformation was not immediate or universally accepted. Mythical geography died slowly. Some cartographers resisted change, continuing to include legendary lands and creatures out of tradition, belief, or economic pressure. Explorers had invested lives and fortunes in the search for imaginary continents like Terra Australis or islands like Antilia, and abandoning these ideas meant admitting centuries of error. Fake lands lingered on maps long after evidence disproved them, demonstrating how deeply imagination had shaped geographic understanding. Correcting these errors required not only better tools, but a cultural shift toward valuing observation over authority. By the end of the Age of Discovery, the balance had decisively shifted. Maps became instruments of science rather than storytelling, grounded increasingly in measurement and verification. While myth never fully disappeared from human imagination, it lost its hold on geography. The world was no longer framed by monsters, divine centers, or endless blank edges. Instead, it emerged as a continuous, measurable planet, vast, complex, and real. The Age of Discovery did not merely expand maps, it transformed how humanity understood the Earth itself, marking the gradual end of mythical geography and the beginning of the modern world.
From the earliest cave paintings to the grand maps of medieval Europe, imaginary worlds reveal more about the human mind than about the physical earth. Monsters, lost lands, and mysterious oceans were not created simply because people lacked information. They emerged because the human brain is wired to seek meaning in uncertainty. When faced with vast, uncharted spaces, fear naturally followed. The unknown posed real threats: storms, starvation, hostile environments, and the mind responded by giving those dangers shape and story. A monster was easier to comprehend than a formless risk. By imagining creatures lurking in dark waters or lands beyond the horizon, people transformed abstract fear into something concrete, something that could be named, warned against, and psychologically managed. At the same time, imaginary worlds fulfilled a deep need for meaning. Humans have always struggled to accept randomness. Lost continents, enchanted islands, and divine realms offered explanations for suffering, disappearance, and mystery. If a ship vanished, it was not meaningless tragedy. It had fallen victim to a sea serpent or crossed into cursed waters. These narratives comforted communities by placing events within a larger framework. Storytelling became a way to preserve order in a chaotic world, ensuring that the unknown did not feel entirely senseless. In this way, myths functioned as emotional tools, helping humans confront fear, create meaning, preserve knowledge, and pursue hope. While science eventually replaced monsters and lost lands with measurements and maps, the impulse to imagine never disappeared. It simply shifted form. The psychology that once filled oceans with serpents now fuels science fiction and space exploration. Imaginary worlds remain essential to how humans face the unknown, reminding us that before we map reality, we must first imagine it.
By the time the modern world emerged, the Earth had been transformed from a realm of mystery into a measured, charted planet. Oceans were no longer endless voids guarded by monsters, and continents were no longer imagined shapes sketched from rumor and belief. The gradual accumulation of observation, technology, and shared knowledge stripped away the unknown, replacing myth with measurement. The world was revealed as continuous, finite, and knowable. What once inspired fear and wonder became data, coordinates, and borders. The mysterious Earth, as it had existed for thousands of years in human imagination, quietly came to an end. Yet something was lost in that triumph of accuracy. When maps became precise, they also became less poetic. The dragons vanished, the phantom islands dissolved, and the blank spaces that once invited imagination disappeared. Early maps were not just guides, they were stories. They captured hope, fear, belief, and longing in a way modern maps rarely do. The romance of the unknown faded as the world became familiar, leaving less room for wonder and speculation. While accurate maps made travel safer and knowledge more reliable, they also removed the sense that the world held infinite mystery just beyond the horizon. This is why old maps continue to fascinate us. Their inaccuracies are not flaws, but windows into the past. A misplaced continent or an impossible sea monster tells us how people once understood reality. These maps preserve human imagination in ink, freezing moments when belief filled the gaps left by knowledge. They reveal a world shaped by faith, fear, and curiosity rather than satellites and surveys. In their distortions, we see creativity. In their myths, we see meaning. They remind us that knowledge is always evolving and that certainty is a relatively modern luxury. Old maps also endure because they mirror the human mind itself. Like thought, they are imperfect, subjective, and shaped by experience. They show how humans once organized chaos, imposed order on the unknown, and made sense of a vast and frightening world. Even today, as technology maps every corner of the planet, the fascination remains. We still long for mystery, for places not yet understood, for edges that invite imagination. The monsters may be gone from our maps, but they survive in stories, art, and dreams. From myth to measurement, the journey of cartography is also the story of humanity's evolving relationship with the unknown. Accurate maps revealed the world, but imperfect ones reveal us. They remind us that before we could measure the Earth, we had to imagine it, and that imagination, even in an age of precision, remains an essential part of what makes us human.